Hello everyone and welcome to the second video for segments and midpoints. We are still on page 41. We're going to look at number 11 here. Okay, so it says you can use a number line to find the distance between 2 points. So a number line, goes the more left you go, the smaller the numbers they get. The more right you go, the bigger the numbers get. It doesn't have to always be in the middle, starting at 0. It could be anywhere in, any number from negative infinity to infinity. So in this case, we can see this number line. We have L at -3 and M at 4, and we want to find LM. Remember, when there's no line above the letters, that means we're finding the actual length of that line segment, not the line segment itself. So when you are finding the length of a line segment that is on a number line, what you need to do is take the absolute value of the difference of those two numbers. So what that means is you subtract the two numbers. So L is -3 minus M, which is 4. You subtract those two numbers and take the absolute value of them. So -3 minus 4 is -7. The absolute value of -7 is +7. In case you don't remember, absolute value is distance from 0. So distances can't be negative, so how far is -7 from 0? It's 7 away from 0, so 7 would be the positive answer here. And it doesn't matter what order you subtract these in. I could do this same problem, but I'll start with M. M is 4 minus L, which is -3. Take the absolute value. 4 minus -3 is like 4 plus 3, which is 7. Absolute value of 7 is just 7. So basically what absolute value does is it gets rid of any negatives. If it's a positive number, it doesn't do anything. So in this case, LM is 7. And you could check that by counting. Start at one point and just count your way up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now that doesn't always work super nice because, it depends on what the distance between each of these points are, or these lines. In this case, they're each 1, so it works out nicely. But if they're not 1, you can't just count like that. And if it's really big, counting doesn't make sense. I was just showing you that. You don't want to count to find your answers, right? You want to do the absolute value of the difference of the two endpoints of your line segment. So let's take a look at 12. We're now on page 42. All right, so we're moving on to the next page, which is 42. And number 12, the midpoint of a segment is halfway between its endpoints. So if you know the coordinates of the endpoints, you can average them to find the coordinate of the midpoint. So what does that mean? So here we want to find the midpoint of P and Q. And the way you do that is, like they said, you average them. So you add everything together and divide by how many there are. So in this case, it's 2 endpoints. So you add the 2 endpoints together. So in this case, 8 plus 40, and it doesn't matter what order, 40 plus 8 and 8 plus 40 is the same. And then you divide by how many there are. In this case, there's only 2 of them, so you divide by 2. So if you want to find the midpoint of a line segment on a number line, add the 2 endpoints together and divide by 2. 40 plus 8 is 48, divided by 2 is 24. So in this case, the midpoint would be at the spot for 24. That would be M. All right, so again, if you want to find the midpoint, you add the 2 endpoints together and then divide that whole thing by 2. Right here, 40 plus 8 is 48. Divide that by 2, and you get the midpoint, which is 24. All right, so we're going to take a look at number 13. We're still on page 42. Use the number line to solve each problem. So here they give us number line, KL. What is KL? So remember, there's no line there, so that means the actual length. So you're going to subtract the 2 endpoints, right? We have K, which is -9, L, which is 15. So I want to take the absolute value of the difference. So I'm going to subtract them, -9 minus 15. Absolute value of that, -9 minus 15 is -24. Absolute value of negative 24 is 24. So KL equals 24. All right, that's A. So then what is the coordinate of the midpoint? So remember, if I want to find the midpoint, I'm going to do it over here now. I add the two endpoints together. Right, this is a little different. When we're finding the difference, we subtracted. Now when we're finding the actual midpoint, we add them. And you don't have to do the absolute value here. So negative 9 plus 15, right? Those are the two endpoints for K and L, negative 9 and 15. I add those together and divide by 2. Negative 9 and 15 is 6. And then divide that by 2 gives us 3. They don't tell us what the midpoint is. We'll use the letter M again. It doesn't have to be M all the time, and it won't always be M, so just a heads up on that. But we'll use M here. So the midpoint would be at point M right there at 3 on the number line. So we got that. Point C lies between points in K. The distance between K and C is 1/3 of KL. So what is 1/3 of KL? That's what we need to find first. We know from part A that KL is 24, so we want to multiply that by 1/3, which is the same as dividing it by 3, and that gives us 8. So point C is going to be 8 away from K. So if I had K, I could add 8 to it, right? So K is at negative 9 plus the 8 gives us negative 1. So I would put point C right here at negative 1. And I know negative 1 isn't on the number line, so I'm going to add it in there. And that would give us the 1/3 mark, or 1/3 of KL, right? This distance between K and C is going to be 8, which is 1/3 of the distance of K to L. Point N lies between C and L. The distance between points C and N is 3/4 of CL. So what is the coordinate of N? So the first thing we need to do is find the distance for C and L. You could figure that out, since it's 24 for K and L, and we know this distance was 8. That means the other distance is going to be double because there was 1/3 from K to C, so there's got to be 2/3 from C to L. So that's going to give us 8 times 2, which is 16. Right? CL is 16 big, or you could have counted or did the absolute value subtraction. So we know C is at negative 1 minus 15, which is where L is. That gives us negative 16 absolute value, which gives us positive 16. So you could have also found the distance that way, however you want to do it. But now the distance between C and N is 3/4 of CL. So we know CL is 16 times 3/4 is going to give us 12. So the distance between C and N is 12. So I need to go from that negative 1 up 12. So I'm going to add 12. That brings me to 11. So N needs to be at 11. So I can add that in there. Right, 11. There is no spot for 11, so that's why I had to add one in there where I thought about where it would be. Okay, so here it got a little difficult with the fractions. If you're trying to find 1/3 or 3/4 of something, just take whatever that number is and multiply it by that fraction. If you don't know how 16 times 3/4 is 12, what I typically do is I take this number and divide it by the bottom number. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, and then multiply that by the top number. 4 times 3 is 12. So that's something you could do, however you want to do it. But again, if you have any questions, just send me a message or join my Zoom.